Welcome to Screw the Commute, the entrepreneurial podcast dedicated to getting you out of the car and into the money. With your host, lifelong entrepreneur and multimillionaire, Tom Antion.
Hello. It's Tom here with episode 34 of Screw the Commute podcast. Today we're going to talk about email marketing. This is where the money is. You've really got to absorb this episode and visit the show notes for examples. Now, I hope you didn't miss episode 33 with Christina Hill. She's also featured in the American Entrepreneur documentary. And check this out. She had a fancy Hollywood job, and then when she had her baby, she quit and never looked back. So check her out in episode 33. Our sponsor today is the Screw the Commute private Facebook group, where you can interact with me, my staff, and with other great entrepreneurs and like-minded people. And it's a place where my staff and I put in training and business tips several times per week. And you can ask questions and get feedback on things you're doing. I'll tell you more about that later, but you can check it out in the show notes at screwthecommute.com/34. This is episode 34. Or you can visit directly at greatinternetmarketing.com/screwthecommute. And hey, you can try it out for a week for only $1. All right, let's get into the main topic on email marketing. You can make a lot of money with quality email marketing. Still to this day, with all the fancy social media and text and messenger marketing, people at my level still make virtually all our money through email. In this episode, I'm going to cover the mechanics and theories of email marketing. In a future episode, I'll cover list building. The reason I'm doing it in this order is to save you from yourself, okay? I don't want you emailing a bunch of people and getting no results. And I especially don't want you to get negative results. Negative results mean, at the mild end, oh, well, maybe your emails take too long to create. At the moderate negative level, many of your emails get caught in spam filters, so you kind of wasted your time. And the severe negative level, you get yours and possibly someone else's website shut down because of something you did either on purpose or just because you didn't know any better. So in this episode, I'll be covering all the things you need to know about email marketing to be efficient, safe, and to sell more stuff. Now, email marketing also includes autoresponder marketing. Autoresponder emails are just emails triggered in a certain way. I should recap that here. A broadcast email is one that you send out anytime you feel like it. An autoresponder email is triggered by something the user does. They might buy something, opt into your list, or sign up to get some freebies you're giving them. In some cases, they could email to a certain email address to trigger the autoresponder. However, that's not that common anymore. I covered autoresponders heavily in episode 10, all about shopping cart systems, where good shopping cart systems include unlimited numbers of autoresponders. You really should review that episode and note that we use and promote kickstartcart.com, and we'll have that in the show notes for you. Okay, I've got some overriding principles for you. In general, the more email you send, the more money you'll make. And that's up to a point. I'll talk more about that in the frequency section a little later. And that section is about how to figure out how often you should send email. The next principle is social media has one purpose and one purpose only. And that's to get people the heck off of social media and onto an email list that's under your control. Yeah, I know social media is a must for credibility building, and that people that want to do business with you will frequently check out your social media. But from a money standpoint, you will make the money from email, and you won't be susceptible to the constant social media changes that can wipe out what you're doing in just a second. The third principle is the trend to shorter emails leading to a web page. The longer your email is, the more chance it will innocently get caught in a spam filter. There are techniques, and I'm going to tell you about a really powerful one a little later, that with a really short email, you can get way more people to open your email and way more people to click through to your website, where then you can sell them lots of stuff. All right, let's talk about the important subject of spam. If you're a legitimate business person or aspire to be one, you do not want to be thought of as a spammer. You will see people trying to sell you tens of thousands of emails for $5 or $10 or something ridiculous like that. If you would send an email to that list, most likely many of the emails are bad, and the ones that get through, I gotta tell you, you should hope that they don't respond. Okay? And why is that? Because they're going to cuss you out. They're going to threaten to kill you and complain to your email and web host and possibly get you shut down completely. I've even seen it so bad, they'll go to any links in your spam email and have those sites shut down. You'll likely get sued by those website owners. You just can't get sucked in by the thought of quick email riches by buying a big list. It just does not happen. On the other hand, if you do it correctly, like I'm going to teach you in this episode, it can create enormous regular income for you and your family. Now, which do you want? Great regular income for years, or immediately lose everything online for spamming? Right? It shouldn't be that hard of a decision. Now, there's a term called UCE, unsolicited commercial email. That's the legal term for an electronic promotional message sent to a consumer without the consumer's prior request or consent. We just call it spam, basically. So here are some typical ways you can become a spammer. I don't want you to become a spammer, right? But you could, accidentally. If you send an email that someone didn't ask for and telling them they can opt out if they don't want them anymore, opt out makes you a spammer. They didn't ask for the first email in the first place, so you're still a spammer. Scraping. This is using a piece of software to grab email addresses off thousands of websites and then emailing those addresses. You're a spammer. Here's a very common one I see all the time. Someone gets a directory of, let's say, accountants. And then they type in all the emails by hand and email all the accountants. You're a spammer. And buying a list, as I mentioned before. And then here's another one, emailing from business cards. What I do is I ask the person giving me a business card if it's okay to email them, and I note that on the card where I asked them and what they said. Now, when I do a speaking engagement, I usually hold a business card drawing. And from the stage, I tell people, hey, if you don't want to get emails from me, just write no emails on the business card. I teach actually my entire back of the room sales method as part of my professional speaking mentor program. You can, if you're interested in that at all, you can check that out at antion.com/pro speaking. I've made millions of dollars selling at the back of the room without being obnoxious. I can teach you how to do it. All right, now in 2003, we're still on the subject of spam. The CAN-SPAM Act was passed into law. This makes it really clear for business people how to stay out of trouble when sending commercial emails. Now, the link to their definition and their explanation is humongous. It's the guideline page of the Federal Trade Commission. So I'm going to put it in the show notes, and I highly recommend you read through it. They do have a bulleted list to show you the, 6 or 7 things to make sure you don't do. I'm going to cover some of them here. Okay, so that little discussion was all about who you can send to and what you must do so you aren't considered a spammer. But here's the thing. Just because you aren't a spammer doesn't mean your emails will get through spam filters, even to people who want your emails. So this next section is going to tell you what to do to get the most possible emails to their intended recipients. All right, let's talk about spam triggers. Spam triggers are words or phrases that make your email look like spam to a spam filter. You could innocently write something that to you and even to the recipient looks like nothing but the information you wanted to convey about your product or service or free webinar or whatever the heck you're writing about. But to a spam filter that sees a billion emails an hour, that innocent thing you wrote looks like spam. You got to avoid putting these words and phrases in your emails. For instance, I never use the word money or free in an email. And there's hundreds more, probably thousands of words and phrases you don't want to use. I really want you to get a feel for them. So in the show notes, I've put links to lots of lists of spam triggers. Just read through them and you'll start to get a feel for, oh my God, that looks pretty innocent, but it could trigger a spam filter and then your email doesn't get through. So I put those links in the show notes for episode 34, screwthecommute.com/34. But you know what? There's an easier way. So enter Spam Assassin. And I have no affiliation with this company directly or get any money from them. But this is a program which is always kept up to date where you can put in your email and it will evaluate what your email looks like to a spam filter before you send it. That way you can fix any problems and get a better spam score. See, in spam scores, the lower the score, the better. 5 is bad, really bad. 0 is great. If Spam Assassin gives you a 5 as your score, don't even bother sending out the email for several reasons. Virtually none of the emails will get through. That's the first reason. Second, you're wasting your time. And 3, here's an extra bad one you probably didn't think of. Now the server you are sending from starts to look like a spam server. And then eventually everyone refuses to accept emails at all from that server because the server looks like it's sending out spam all the time. So that's 3 things that are really bad about this. So don't send out emails that look like spam. So you can either sign up separately for Spam Assassin or it's included very conveniently in the email section of the shopping cart system I promote, kickstartcart.com. So in the cart email section, all you have to do is paste in your email, click the Spam Assassin link, and read your score. If it's a good score, you hit send. If it's not, Spam Assassin tells you what to fix. You go ahead and fix it and then hit send. And just taking that extra 30 seconds, you can make a lot more money because more of your emails will get through the spam filters. You also want to put a section on your website on how people can whitelist your email. In other words, they're telling their spam and junk mail filters definitively that they want to receive your email and not let a spam filter be the judge. Now, that's not 100% perfect, but it will help get more emails through. And I'll put a sample you can copy in the show notes. Now, when you get into this, you will most likely get approached about ad swaps and solo ads by other list owners. You have to be extremely careful about these deals. See, if the other list owner hasn't been careful about how they got their email addresses, you could get in trouble or shut down. Be especially aware when you see people claiming really large lists and only charging you a little to advertise yourself to their list. I can't tell you how many times those lists were all scraped email addresses and fake email addresses. And if you're lucky, all right, you only lose money for being advertised on that list. If you're not so lucky, again, you could get shut down. Now, one other thing about spam, you should clean up your undeliverable emails. Those are called bounces, by the way, and remove them from your list. See, when you send out lots of undeliverable emails, you start looking like a spammer. So keep your list clean. And this is spam related, and I'll cover it in future episodes on list building, but you do have to decide if you want people to double opt in or single opt in, if that's good enough for you. Like I said, I'll cover that on list building in a different episode. The only thing I wanted you to know is that single opt-in has more of a chance to get spam complaints. All right, our next topic is the format of your email. See, people in my butt camps, and I better explain that to you. Butt camp is one of the top 3 longest running internet marketing seminars ever. Mine started in 1997. And I come from a comic background, and people were begging me to teach them what I had learned about internet marketing. I was not about to do what everybody else does and have a boot camp, right? And I thought, yeah, well, I'm sitting here making all this money sitting on my rear end. I'll call it butt camp. And it caught on, and it is a goofy name, but it's a very serious seminar on internet marketing. And I've done them in 11 countries around the world, except in England, they made me call it bum camp. Okay. So anyway, people at the butt camps always want to argue with me about whether they should do their emails in plain text or HTML. HTML is so it comes out all nicely formatted and looking like a web page. First, let me say, get this through your head, all right? Nobody at my level who makes their living internet marketing and sending emails uses HTML email. We just use plain text, and I'm going to tell you why in a moment. And yeah, you might see some well-known person use it because some geek is doing it for them. That geek never made a nickel actually selling online. The well-known celebrity doesn't know any better, and they make their money some other way, and they don't depend on email to do it. So you can't count on that. So everybody says, Tom, I want it to look pretty and impressive. Guess what? All that prettiness doesn't mean anything if you don't make any money from the email, right? Now, there's so many negatives to HTML email. HTML takes way more time and work to create. I could create 4 or more email promotions easily in just plain text and make way more money in the same amount of time as you creating your one nice HTML email. Now, HTML emails can make you look bad and you'll never even know it. Some estimates say that as much as 60% of HTML email does not get to its recipient looking like it was intended to look when it left you. This means if you aren't a real professional emailer, you probably don't know all the tricks necessary to make your HTML email look good when it gets to your subscriber. And if you hire one of these people, you're going to pay a fortune because that's a pretty high-level person. All right, HTML was originally invented by the porn industry. So many people say, still to this day, spam filters tend to target HTML email, and that further limits your delivery of emails. Now, many recipients of your email, me included, have preview windows that are set, and you may have them too, that are set to eliminate graphics. So your gorgeous email looks terrible in the preview window, and it may not convey any of your message, so people won't be inclined to even open it. So as an experienced marketer, the only time I would even consider HTML email is if I was starting a new project and I wanted to know the open rate of emails. This can be calculated with HTML email and not with plain text. Then I would switch back to plain text. Now, it's too much to cover here, but in the show notes, I'm going to include a complete list of pros and cons of HTML email for you. So that's screwthecommute.com/34 for this episode. All right, so what's the alternative? You've heard me talking about plain text email. Well, in plain text email, there's no bold, italic, underline, no bullets, no colored text, no different font sizes in the same email, no graphics. It's just plain text. Does that sound boring to you? Well, it doesn't to me, because I hear the sound of ka-ching every time I send one, and more ka-chings than if I was sending HTML. Now, in plain text, there are some formatting things to keep in mind. Now, have you ever gotten an email where there is a long line and then only one word on the next line, and then another long line and one or two words on the next line? It looks stupid and it's hard to read. I don't know the technical aspect of it, but it has something to do with the way different email readers wrap text. Now, you have no idea how long someone else's email reader is set to wrap text. So what you can be sure of, it's not much more than 70 characters. That includes spaces. So if you set your email to break the end of each line at roughly 65 characters, then you have better control of the look of your emails when they get to the other end. And again, I'm going to put a sample in the show notes of what bad-looking email looks like and what proper plain text email looks like. Again, this is episode 34. Now, to make your plain text email line up nicely, you would count approximately 65 characters, including spaces, and then hit your return key, which puts in a hard return and goes to the next line. Now, this is not hard, but it's a pain in the neck, especially if you have to edit the email. But it is necessary to make your email look readable when it gets to the other end. The only problem is that some email readers strip out hard returns, so this isn't 100% effective. Now, how can you make this easier? Well, if you're on a PC, there's a free program called TextPad, and that's not to be confused with Microsoft WordPad. And you can find it at textpad.com, and it will automatically put in a hard return at whatever character count you want. This saves a lot of time putting in hard returns at the end of every line, and if you edit the email, it's not such a big hassle. And TextPad also has spell check, which is a handy feature to have. If you decide to get TextPad, take your time, set it up properly to put in the hard returns at about 65 characters. It's also smart enough not to break a line exactly at 65 and put a hyphen in. It's got a little bit of leeway. It's smart enough to not put a whole bunch of hyphens at the end of your line. Now, if I want bullets in an email, I put an equal sign next to a greater than symbol. The greater than, let me see, is above the period key on your keyboard. So equals and a greater than sign makes a little bullet, plain text bullet. I put space between paragraphs, and I keep paragraphs very short, 1 or 2 sentences. And here's another thing to keep in mind. You're never going to get an A from your English teacher for sales and email copy, so don't worry about it. We care about the easy readability for the recipient so that you make money and they read your stuff and buy your stuff. Now, you're also going to learn when you read about the Canned Spam Act at the show notes that you must have contact info and an easy remove link in your emails. And if you're using kickstartcart.com, all that's inserted automatically for you. Now let's talk about subject lines. What do you think the number one thing is that keeps your email from getting deleted immediately when it hits people's inboxes? I fooled you. It's not the subject line. It's whether the recipient recognizes who the email is from. So you must keep this consistent for each different list you have. See, if you have a list of golf enthusiasts, maybe your email comes from the Golf Nut. If you sell archery stuff, then maybe the email you send comes from Broadhead. I mean, that's an archery term. You can always just use your name. No problem there. Just be consistent so the email doesn't get deleted immediately. All right. Just because you don't get deleted immediately doesn't mean your email gets opened. So I'm not fooling you here, all right? The number one thing that gets your email opened, you guessed it, the subject line. Here's a couple of things about subject lines. The subject line should be 50 characters or less, including spaces. Hey, look at your own email reader and count how many characters you have allotted to subject lines in your email reader. On my big laptop, it's only 36, which brings up my next point. Put the most important words in your subject line to the left. Most places in the world read left to right. People should be able to tell what the email is about, even if the subject line gets truncated, which is a fancy word for cut off on the right-hand end. Now, this brings me to another point on subject lines, and that is that the subject line must truly reflect what is in the email, or you have violated the Canned Spam Act. Some forms of this are called clickbait, where someone writes some outrageous thing like XYZ celebrity passes to make you think some celebrity died. And when you click to the email, let's say it's about tooth whitening cream or something totally unrelated. Not only is this technically illegal, no one is going to open any more of your emails because they see you as a liar. Now, I'll just throw a sidebar here from my internet training. Never, ever, ever get people to click on a link where they think they're going one place and they end up somewhere else. They will leave immediately, and you have just damaged your reputation, and they won't be back. All right, the clickbait example I just used does have a powerful element that we will use in our emails, and it's extremely powerful. It's called the Zeigarnik technique. That's Zeigarnik. I covered this more in depth in episode 13 on advertising copywriting, so you want to go back and check that out. But I also have while I'm talking about it, I also have an in-depth copywriting webinar at tomantionwebinars.com. And of course, that'll be in the show notes at screwthecommute.com/34. So copywriting, that's the number one skill in my entire business career. So I really emphasize it heavily. But this one technique called the Zeigarnik technique, let me give you a quick recap about it. It's that you create curiosity. Using it legitimately to get people to open an email is fine. Using it like the clickbait example is not. So you can use the Zeigarnik technique in the subject line to get more people to open your email. We call this the open rate. In other words, if 100 people get your email and 30 people open it, that's a 30% open rate. Let me give you some examples. Here's a subject line. Wow, did I get in trouble? Well, people will be curious to find out what I got in trouble for, and they have to look in the email to find out. Here's another subject line. He scammed me. Now, this is a double whammy. People wonder who I'm talking about and how did I get scammed? So they got to open the email to find out. Here's another one. The dumbest thing I ever heard. Now, people will want to know what the dumb thing was and most likely who said it or what dumb policy did some government agency implement. I really don't know what they would think about this one, but as long as I deliver in the email what I talked about in the subject line, I'm okay with the people and with the law. So let's take a moment and let me tell you about a great group that you could join to get access to me and my entire staff and a lot of training at a very inexpensive price. Screw the Commute private Facebook group is where you can interact with me, my staff, other great entrepreneurs and like-minded people. It's a place where my staff and I put in training and business tips several times per week. And you can ask questions and get feedback on things you're doing from myself and everybody else. And I give you quick tips that have made and saved me tons of money over more than 40 years in business. And myself and my staff also give you more in-depth postings on all kinds of business topics. So check it out in the show notes at screwthecommute.com, or you can go directly to greatinternetmarketing.com/screwthecommute. And hey, you can get a week's trial for only $1. Where are you going to find that? All right, let's get back to the main topic. Here's a question you might ask me. Okay, Tom, that's cool to get them to open the email with the Zeigarnik technique, but how do you make money telling stories of what happened to you or stories about dumb things you heard? You make money by transitioning to what you learned or what the situation meant to you and others on your list. All right, let me give you, for instance, let's take the subject line, "Wow, did I get in trouble?" In the email, I might write something like this: "Times are sure a-changing. I was talking to a woman at a seminar who had her late teenage age daughter with her, who had been participating very intelligently in the seminar. Her comments were especially articulate and very insightful for her age. During a break, I was chatting away with her mother, and I made the fatal mistake. I said, 'Your girl is extremely bright and a great addition to this seminar.' Her mother said to me indignantly, 'She is not a girl. She is a woman.' And she walked away and avoided talking to me the rest of the 3-day seminar." Wow, that really hit me hard. I was trying to compliment a mother on her daughter, and it got shoved right back down my throat. I figured, if this is the way the world is now, I better get up to speed. So I started researching political correctness, and I found an overwhelming amount of stuff that I had been messing up. I knew there were lots of guys out there like me, so I compiled everything into a quick read ebook called "The Politically Correct Way to Speak to Women." And then blah, 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 I tell about the book. Then you take it, all right, so I'm done with what the email says. But then you take them to a web page for the full sales letter or sales video or whatever mechanism you're using from my copywriting in episode 13. So you see, I just used a story to illustrate a problem and the transition to what I did about it and how I turned it into a product. So you need to get good at storytelling and transitioning and practice that. All right, here's some more about selling and upselling in emails. One of my overriding principles is that I want people to get used to getting emails from me that help them. That's what email newsletters are all about. You give them tips and news on your topic that help them. And then they don't mind if you put some ads in or occasionally do an email that's just an ad. That's called a solo ad. So make sure the bulk of your emails help the people on your list, and they will stay a long time, sometimes forever, which gives you lots of chances to get them to buy something from you or an affiliate product you're recommending. Now, I'm going to get into affiliate marketing totally in a separate episode. But these people can stay on forever. I did a webinar not too long ago. I asked people how long they had been doing business with me. There was many over 20 years, and some, I think the most was 24 years, all right, because all the stuff I give them helps them, and then they don't mind if I sell them something once in a while. So use the Zygarnik technique. You don't have to use it every time. It's just one of the tools you can use, but you must always use good copywriting to get them to buy. Another thing I want you to keep in mind is that it's harder to sell high-priced items directly from email. Usually you want to get them to click through to a web page, either using the Zygarnik technique in the body of the email to create curiosity, or just tell them briefly about the great thing you have and get them to click through to the website for the complete details. On the other hand, cheap items can be sold directly from emails. And cheap is a relative term based on your market. If your market is stay-at-home parents who can barely make their rent, cheap is one thing. If you're selling to stock market people that pay $400 a month for various financial newsletters, cheap is something entirely different. And you can have various promotions like holiday sales, anniversary sales, birthday sales, and all that. Make sure you review my upselling episode 22, for lots of ways to increase your income once you get them to buy your first product. In that episode, that's 22, I also cover advertorials in that, which are sales letters that just look like articles and they sell like crazy. That's episode 22. All right, another way to make money with your email marketing is that you can sell solo ads. A solo ad is usually an ad for someone else that you send to your list where nothing else is in the email except the ad. That's why they call it a solo ad. Now, if you get enough people on your list, people will pay you for this. Now, of course, you could also call it a solo ad if you're just sending an ad for your own stuff. I mentioned that just a little while earlier. But no other content is in the email. That's why it's called solo. Usually solo ads, if you hear that term, means you're emailing someone else's ad. Another way to make money with your email marketing is that you can promote affiliate products. In this case, instead of someone paying you a flat fee for emailing their product ad, you email it for free and you get a commission for each product sold. Again, I'm going to do a whole episode on affiliate marketing later. And of course, you can sell your own stuff as a small ad in a helpful email, full of content, or as a solo ad. Either way. And to get thousands of ideas for products that are proven to sell, listen to episode 19 on creating quality products from nothing. And hope you're not getting sick of me referring to other episodes, but I get so darn much material, I can't fit it in one recording. So I've got lots of Monday training sessions for you yet to come, and a whole bunch already there. So check them all out. All right, now let's talk about how often and when you should send email. In general, and I mean very in general, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays are best unless you have a weekend-oriented topic like sports. Now, that does not mean Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays are the best. I've had success on every single day of the week, including holidays. But in the beginning, you probably don't have any idea of the people that are on your list. Do they work 9 to 5 weekdays? Are they entrepreneurs working from home? Are they small business owners not working from home? Do they work shifts? Are they retired? What's their average age? What percentage of people are in different time zones? And all these things you don't know yet. You have to start sending email and start paying attention to the results. If you're just starting out, I'm okay with a little HTML email so you can see what open rates you're getting for certain subject lines and days of the week. I wouldn't do it too long, and I wouldn't put graphics in them. So just an FYI, you can send HTML email with only text in it, but it's technically HTML format, but just don't do it forever. It's going to hurt you in the long run. So once you get some experience with your audience, you'll start to see what days of the week and even what times of day you get the best response, and then you'll slant most of your email to those days and times. All right, now let's talk about how often you should send emails. There's a rule of thumb here too. The more emails you send, the more money you'll make, period. And I got to qualify that up to a point. All right, you could send 10 a day and nobody would open them. But I always say up to a point because you can overwhelm your audience with emails and they're going to unsubscribe. So here's the method I teach. Keep sending more and more emails until you get an unsubscribe and complaint rate that's too high. Of course, too high is also subjective and depends on how many new subscribers a day you bring in through list building, which I'll cover in a future episode. And most people get nervous about sending too many emails, thinking their audience will think poorly of them and it's going to hurt their reputation. I guess that's possible, but you have to decide if you want to make money or not. I mean, I know many doctors and lawyers are making a fortune selling information, supplements, and all kinds of stuff. Their jealous, broke colleagues cut them down, and they don't seem to care. I know one doctor who never sees patients pulling in $40 million a year doing this kind of stuff. He probably laughs when he hears about some other doctor criticizing him. So long as he's doing ethical things, I'm perfectly okay with him earning $40 million and not seeing patients. So send more emails than you're comfortable sending and watch your unsubscribe and complaint rates and then adjust accordingly. Just keep sending good and helpful information and you will attract and keep interested subscribers, and those not interested are going to leave. But for God's sake, don't stop sending because a couple people complain. You can't let a couple negative people run your business for you. All right, the next little thing is scheduling advance emails. I won't spend too much time on this pretty simple concept. Scheduling means that you sit down maybe on Sunday and write 3 emails to go out on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. You put them in your Kickstart cart, and you're done writing your emails for the week. Well, let me tell you a story of why you shouldn't, they say, get too far out in front of your skis. Ever hear that saying? So I know this really nice, thoughtful, caring guy from Texas who months in advance wrote an email with the subject line as follows: get a flood of new customers. And flood was all caps. Guess when it went out? In the middle of Hurricane Katrina. Ouch. Oh my God, I feel so bad. He got tons of hate mail and called every name in the book. So pay attention to your automated scheduling and don't get too dependent on it, okay? And one more thing. I've had successful email go out on Thanksgiving. I even threw a teleclass on Thanksgiving once. That's how pitiful I am. I didn't even realize it was Thanksgiving. All right. Well, 60 people signed up for it. I made about $4,000 that day when most other people were wasting time watching football and getting drunk. All right. So don't be afraid to experiment with promotions at odd times. All right. So I got some miscellaneous tips for you before we hang it up for today. Moving your list. I mean, this freaks people out. So say they have their list on a poor email system and they need to move it to someplace good. They're going to lose tons of subscribers. This happens to everybody. It's better to get a good system in place than limp along with a poor system and a bunch of what you think are great subscribers, but they really aren't. If they were, they'd be bugging you to make sure they got signed up on your new system when you told them you were switching. Got to get your ego out of this and realize most people on your list don't revolve their world around you. I know that's a big revelation for some of us, right? But when my students have to move their list, I teach them methods to maximize the switchover. But just be resolved. You will lose subscribers when you move a list. Just remember, you're not losing that much, even though it seems so. Next thing is, there's a danger in free or cheap email hosting. You may get enticed to partake in this because you're on a budget. Hey, I'm the first one who will jump on something free as long as it doesn't hurt my business. Well, email list hosting is not the place to go budget. And here's why. Every spammer, every newbie that does all the wrong things I listed in the spam section will be on that cheap or free email server. Servers around the world will be blocking all email from that service that you're on because the bulk of the email coming from it is spam. So no matter how legitimate your list is, you're on the same server sending out millions of spam emails. You'll be totally wasting your time. Virtually none of your emails will get through, and you always run the risk of getting shut down. None of this is worth it. If you can't afford to do this right, don't bother until you can. You'll just get frustrated and quit. Okay, so we had a great primer here on email marketing. This is a place you must concentrate on for either an online or an offline business. This is where the money is. So make sure you check out the show notes because there's lots of details on this episode I want you to actually see examples of at screwthecommute.com/34. And whenever I say the numbers at the ends, for those of you who listen to a lot of these, it's the numbers. It's not THIRTYFOUR. It's 34. So screwthecommute.com/34. And consider joining the Screw the Commute private Facebook group. You can try it out for a week for only $1, and then it's $37 a month. Or if you want to save a ton of money, go ahead and get the entire year for only $297. Okie doke. The next episode is 35 with Scott Wilson. If you're old enough to remember the TV show Green Acres, all right, this reminds me of the guy on that show. He was an Adobe certified instructor with a great corporate job, and he chucked it all to run an organic farm with his family. Wait till you hear about the cow and the electric fence. It's hysterical. All right, that's the next episode, 35. So please subscribe and review on iTunes, and I will catch you on the next episode. See you later.